Okay, now, Carrie, go. Unleash
Oh,
your wrath upon the world.
come on. No. Let's start with this
Okay.
tweet.
We'll start with
I think,
a beetle. Well,
yeah,
not a beetle. What's
Beatles
the son
son.
of a beetle called? It's a
Let's
small
just start
bug,
with it.
some larva. No, that sounds rude. We'll start with this tweet.
So this is I wanted to start with this because I've been watching. If you guys haven't been following Sean Lennon and you're on Twitter, you should follow him. It's been interesting to watch his evolution. He's definitely a person I would say who is awakening. He's not woke. He's awake. He is evolving and growing as he learns new information. And I think he's really wise. And we've talked a lot about how intelligence doesn't dictate a person's susceptibility to propaganda and bad ideology. That's why some people who are very intelligent who have bought into the narrative. But I think wisdom is a different thing than intelligence, and I think he seems very wise. So let's read this tweet. He says, "It is no longer exaggeration to say that the collusion between social media and media to manipulate our reality for the benefit of their political agendas has reached Stalinist proportions. In fact, Stalin's propaganda machine was relatively weak by comparison. Imagine if he had control of social media technology. How would things have turned out then? What would our understanding of that history be today? It's scary to think about."
Yeah,
And
he's right.
I he's right. He's right. And he's not a tribalist. He's not some MAGA red hat wearing, you can't easily write him off if you want to because he's on the left. And I know they want to, and they'll still try and find a way. But he's not a tribalist. He's not a partisan. He's a person who is awake and who's paying attention. And we've been documenting on this show on an unsafe space for a couple years now. We were doing updates on a purge is what we called it for a while, our series where we would sort of update on the media manipulation, the propaganda, the censorship from big social. And so those of you who've been with us for a little while, or those of you who just follow this yourself, you're aware that this has been going on since 2016, since before 2016, but they really ramped it up when Trump won. And
Yep.
this week, I think they crossed a new line. I think they moved, I think they progressed a little bit further in
I think
terms
they're
of,
yeah, they're continuing to get
yeah,
bolder.
they're
Can we just
bold.
before we even mentioned? I know where you're. I mean, we all know where you're going with
Yeah.
this. The next story. But I want to throw something out because I watched a. This is related. I watched a documentary yesterday, 2 days ago, called "The Social Dilemma" on Netflix,
Oh, I want to see this. I've
and
heard about it.
I want to just throw it out there because first of all, the caveat is it is made by people who are politically on the left, and so they assume that many of the problems with social media are that they're not doing enough to censor or they're not controlling quote fake news enough, and they still believe the Russian narrative. So there's a lot of bad politics in it, and they talk about Pizzagate and Russia and as if these are the big problems with social media. However, I do believe that the people who made this documentary care very much about children and are rightly concerned about the impact of social media on kids and us, and have many valid points. And I realized the reason I want to quickly mention this because it's a Sean's tweet is making me think of this. Stalin's propaganda machine was limited by the technology at the time, and the propaganda we have today, or the ability to distribute propaganda and control the narrative, is it's not even I wouldn't call it a difference in scale. I would call it a difference in kind. It is a different kind of thing. And I realized watching The Social Dilemma that because of my background in Silicon Valley, I actually knew the stuff that they were talking about. I was like, yeah, of course that's how you design software. Yes, I know that that's how it works. But it dawned on me that, and I didn't know some of the stats that they brought out about how it was affecting kids. But it dawned on me that actually there's no reason for normal people to understand that this is what goes on. And so if you're not, and I know a lot of people have canceled Netflix and not everyone's going to watch. So I just want to, at a high level, explain to you, this is not hyperbole. Uh, this is not an exaggeration of what happens. There has been in Silicon Valley for at least a decade, if not longer. I don't remember when this term started getting thrown around. There's the term growth hacker. You would hire growth hackers at your company. In fact, the term growth hacker is kind of cliche and has fallen out of favor now. It's so old in Silicon Valley, but I think people, outside of Silicon Valley still wouldn't be familiar with that term. And the idea is to use knowledge of psychology and human psychology specifically to manipulate behavior so that you behave in ways that help the platform make money. And typically that's to engage with the platform, share with your friends, do that kind of thing. And because we have machine learning, because computing power has increased so vastly, this is not something as simple as, well, you were shopping for furniture, so we're going to show you more furniture ads. Our technology is to the point where for every person, and this isn't exaggeration. I mean, they do some exaggerating like illustrations in this documentary because it's like a drama documentary, but this isn't an exaggeration. They have a virtual you on the back end. They have a virtual Carrie Smith. And they have machine learning algorithms that track how long does Carrie dwell on this particular image before continuing to swipe. How long does she take to pick up her phone? When does she move this? When does she do that? When does she click on this? What does she hover over? Like, they pay attention to literally everything. And they can predict very well what most people will do. And there's a book called, this wasn't mentioned in the movie, but there's a book that's been floating around Silicon Valley for years. And in fact, it's probably old now and outdated, but it was called Hooked by Nir Eyal. If you're interested in learning how a lot of software is developed, the user interface, they are very aware of the dopamine rush you get in anticipation of a reward. Dopamine actually doesn't happen when you click. It's the anticipatory drug that happens. And they understand how to manipulate that. They understand that constant reward is not as good as random reward with random values. And they understand the ranges of that randomness. They really understand how to, in real time, not only serve ads, but serve content that gets you to respond in the way they want, which is typically engage in, more clicks and more activity and blah, blah, blah. You are being manipulated constantly. And the thing that I took away from this, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say along those lines, in terms of knowing how to hook you and knowing how you interact, that the algorithm is being programmed to such a degree that they know what is going to keep you coming back. They will do, I can't remember where I read this, but they'll do things like they know that people get a dopamine rush when others like their picture, right? So if you change your profile picture, they won't it won't show up in all of your friends' feeds at the same time. They stagger it.
Right.
They stagger it so you get likes throughout the day.
Oh,
and the next
and
day.
They might serve you notifications of those likes depending on what your activity level is at the moment to get you to re-engage. If you have it's very targeted to the sense where they may know you better just by having machine learning algorithm watch your behavior. They may be able to anticipate your moves much better than a close friend or even loved one could. It's sometimes better than you can. So they know you very, very, very well. And the analogy that someone used, or the description that I really liked in this, one of the guys mentioned was, in the past, technology was a tool. And tools sit there until you pick them up to use them, right? If you're not going to get in a car, it sits there in your driveway, and then you get in your car and go somewhere. Or, a bicycle or a dictionary or whatever it is. A tool sits there until you pick it up. Modern technology, if you have apps on your phone or notifications enabled and all that kind of stuff, it's not a tool that sits there waiting for you to use it. It's a tool that uses you. It's not a tool, actually. It's a manipulation device that sits around and follows you around. You take it around with you and prompts you to interact with it constantly. And just so people know, I don't know if I've talked about this before, but I don't have Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram on my phone at all. I have to use some of them for work, so they're on my computer. but I have notifications turned off for basically everything except for people who are like I need to talk to. Someone's going to text me or whatever. I don't miss it at all. But this guy used this analogy. He said, I turn off, and by the, oh, this is another open secret. Most technologists in Silicon Valley that are plugged into this, they don't let their kids do any of this crap. It's everyone else. Everyone else's kids are on Facebook and all this stuff.
because
The people designing the
they're
technology.
terrified of it.
Yeah, no
Yeah, the
one
people
does.
designing it
Right.
think
No,
it's
no
sick. A
one.
lot of the people who designed it, I've read interviews, but I haven't seen The Social Dilemma yet. I do want to see it, but I've read interviews with people who've designed the algorithms, and they don't use social media themselves anymore.
Absolutely, absolutely. And in fact, this movie's populated with people who were some of the main designers for some of this stuff. And I think rightly, a lot of them were like, we didn't realize the like button we thought would just be like a positive thing in the world, let people know. Like they didn't realize sometimes, but once it was realized, it became exploited. And now a lot of things are done intentionally. But this guy said, well, I don't have notifications turned on my phone for the same reason that I don't walk around with cookies in my pocket. And for someone like me, I've got a sweet tooth. And if I have cookies stashed in the house or chocolate or sugary drinks, I'm very likely to consume them. It's not that I can't stop myself, but it takes a lot of willpower. And your willpower is like a muscle. Yes, you can build it up, but it also gets fatigued at the end of the day. This is known. So one of the ways you exercise your willpower to not eat sweets all day if you've got a sweet tooth, or to not drink if you have a problem with drinking or whatever, is you don't have it in the house. You don't, and an alcoholic doesn't stock a full bar in their house and just say, well, I'll have it for guests here just in case, but I won't touch it. Like, no, they're smart enough to be like, right? I don't have tubs of ice cream in my freezer because I will eat them. So I exercise my free will at the grocery store. And then I've set up my life in a way where I'm less tempted to I'm not going to run out to the store at 2 a.m. to get ice cream. It's not in the freezer. Ergo, I don't have ice cream. So, but when you have notifications turned on, when you have this stuff turned on, it's like having cookies in your pocket, or pick whatever your other addiction is. It's like having it there all the time, and you constantly have to look at it. And so the reason I want to bring all this up is this. I know people have mentioned Carter eats cookie dough from the fridge. Shut up, Mandy. How do you know? I would. If there were cookie dough in the fridge, I would totally eat cookie dough in the fridge. Yeah. People are already talking about China's social credit system. Like all this, there's going to be a push with COVID and frankly, some quote by safety people at these companies, there's going to be a push to use your phone for regular interactions, getting into a restaurant, getting into a facility to prove your X, Y, and Z. There's a push to do all of this. They are implementing a social credit system, and the best thing that you can possibly do, the only way to thwart their manipulation of you is to not be using the platform. I'm not saying totally off it. Like I have a Twitter account. It's just I don't have notifications. It's not on my phone.
Yeah.
When I want to tweet something, I'm at my desk at work and I want to tweet something or whatever. That's it. And I might use it to look for news. And we've talked about tweets. We just looked at a tweet. That's fine. But I just urge people to be aware of it because it's part of this giant, I'm going to use the word conspiracy, but I don't think it's a smoke-filled room. But it's this giant effort to control the narrative of politics, which is finally we can get back to this. I wanted to throw that out there, Carrie, because
Okay.
This is one
Let's
part of a
get
huge thing.
I get it. Let's get to the fire of it. And
Okay.
you're making me uncomfortable because
Sorry.
I am a social media addict, and you and I have I have my own limits and rules. Like I don't have notifications pop up for Facebook.
Yeah.
But I do have it on my phone, and I know I spend too much time on it, and we all have our own kind of I guess hopefully everyone has their own sort of limitations on how much they let it interfere. You know, when I go out, I can't stand people that are, when you're having dinner with someone and they're on their phone their whole time and they're in virtual space with other people while you're sitting right in front of them.
Yeah.
Like
look,
that kind of interference.
I'm not, look, if you're an adult like you, Carrie, I'm not trying to tell you how to do. I'm just giving you some advice about how it works. It's specifically important if you're the parent, though, of a kid. And they talk about some of these stats. Teenage and preteen girls, suicide rates are skyrocketing. Self-harm is skyrocketing. There's a lot of really, really dangerous things that are happening especially with young kids. So, or
Yeah.
teenagers. So just be aware of that, and I do recommend watching it.